Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane Canada. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Let me tell you something, ladies. Ain't no cavalry coming out of Washington, D.C. to save America. Does America even need saving? Oh, Diane, don't roll your eyes at me. I can see you from here. Listen, we are in the last days, and I am not saying any of this to be a doomsday or not by any stretch, the polar opposite of that. We need to be excited because Jesus is coming back soon. Every single Christian that I talk to that's worth their salt, that's read their Bible at all, we all see it. We all see that the clouds are forming, right? The storm is coming. We know that Jesus is on his way back any minute. We don't know the day, we don't know the hour, and we're not ever going to try and predict that. We are deep, deep, deep in the season. And Washington, all the things that are going on in our country right now are right on schedule for Jesus's arrival. Right on schedule. What do we do? What does that mean for politics? Do we even need to show up to vote? Is there even any point? Yes. Okay. I want to share with you some things today that even though I have made an announcement recently that I am coming out of the political system, so to speak. Y'all know I've been knee deep in it for the last 7 years. I'm stepping out of that, but not because I don't think that politics is still plays a role in our Christian faith. It does. It absolutely does. But I want to share with you the shifts in this and the new perspectives that God has given me on this in hopes that it'll help bring maybe some fresh perspective to you. Pastor Alan Jackson says all the time from World Outreach Church, he says, this is our watch, church. And I got to tell you, we are asleep on the job, a lot of us. It's not all our fault. Our culture and our school systems and all that have set us up. They've set up this perfect storm, right? They wanted us to really not know a lot. They wanted us to really be uninformed or to be deceived or to get deceptive information or to not get all the information. This has all been very, very, very intentional. So it's not all our fault. Okay. But we do have a role to play in these last days. And it's going to be a mix of the spiritual and the political. And I want us to really understand what we can do individually, personally, what we can do and why it matters right now at this particular moment in history. All right. So stay with me. We're going to go into the Tea Time Cafe on the other side of our news headlines with Steve Gill. It's going to be a really important conversation. You're going to want to stick around for this one today. All right. Before we dive in, if I could ask a favor, please, would you mind liking or subscribing, whatever podcast platform you're listening on today? Would really appreciate it. It helps to let other people just like you know about the show, helps them discover it. And I really appreciate that. I am very intentional about growing my audience now because I believe we are in these last days and we need as many people as possible hearing these messages. So thank you for your help with that. All right. We'll be right back with Steve Gill, and then I'll see you on the other side for our personal time, Tea Time Cafe. Get your hot tea ready. Be right back.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just lady up, lady up, lady up. Sidewalks are for bicycles, not for angry moms. Our children will know peace again, 'cause we're on the job. Yeah, lady. We're fired up and we're ready, so give us a little room. Get up. Our faith don't move that mountain now, just watch it move. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. No. Just a lady up, lady up, lady up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. We're going to sit down now with our good friend, Steve Gill. Steve has worked in the White House. He has been on syndicated radio for years, and he currently does a lot of international TV commentary. He's the founding publisher of Tristar Daily, and just a wealth of knowledge, perspective, and information for us. We're so blessed to have him. Please say hello to Steve Gill. Hey, Steve.
Thank you again for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. Always really appreciate you making time to come on here with us every week. What's going on in the world? I will say before you start, I will say you look rested, so it looks like you've had a little bit of sleep. I'm glad to see that.
Much needed after the chaos at Capitol Hill the last week or so with the special session. Well, we're now within just a few months of the primary election season in Tennessee, and primaries matter in Tennessee because Republicans are the majority, not just in the House and the Senate, but in our congressional district, in votes across the state. So primaries dictate to a large extent, frankly, what Republicans will win in the fall, because if you win in most of these districts, you're going to win in the fall. But it's also true for the Democrats. Many of the state House seats, state Senate seats across the state are decidedly Democrat majorities. So primaries really dictate the results in so many cases. So while people may think, well, it's just a primary, why should I turn out? If you don't turn out in the primary, you may not have much option when it comes to the general election. So we're within those couple of months now till the August 6th Republican primaries for state House, state Senate, governor's races, congressional races with the redrawn maps that the House and Senate approved and Governor Lee signed into law. So we're in the fast track to election day, the primary election day. And this is what I like to always call the silly season. You're going to see the crazy stuff, the rumors, the innuendo, the attack ads, and some of the best and worst ads that you're going to see on your television, on your computers, as people increasingly use the online ads to communicate their message. And we've seen some great ads around the country. I haven't seen anything yet in Tennessee. And again, we just kind of got into the final months before the primary. So we're going to see a lot more flurry of activity media-wise. But around the country, as you've got, Kentucky and California and other states moving into their primaries, we're seeing some amazing ads. And nothing has been better than Spencer Pratt running for mayor of Los Angeles. He's got a shot as a Republican, as a former reality show host, to actually win the mayor's race in Los Angeles. And the real reason is because he's had the most amazing ads. He's got one where he kind of portrays himself as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He has another one, just like a Lego ad. His ads have been spectacular. His house burned down because of the Palisades fire. So he's been pointing out that he is homeless, but when he wins the mayor's office, he will move into the mayor's mansion and will be restored to a home. So he has done an amazing job of communicating and in a creative, fun way. And again, over the next few months, we're going to see some ads that are going to make us yawn and probably doze off in the middle of the 30-second ad.
Yeah.
That is certainly not the case with his. And candidates that are smart will engage in some creative ways to communicate. Now, sometimes it'll fall short. Humor is always a risk, whether you're a comedian on stage or whether you're using humor in your political ads. But you've got to have that creative ability, particularly as we get into the last few weeks of this campaign season, when it is so loud. We've got state House, state Senate, governor's races, out-of-state special interest, all running ads, all putting mail into your mailboxes. You've got to do something that's going to crack through the noise, and that's where that creativity comes. And sadly, I haven't seen much yet. And generally in Tennessee, we don't see a lot of spectacular creativity. I'm hoping this will be a different season.
I hope so too. So a couple things real quick. I did see one ad from John Rose already for a tough like Trump kind of ad. I'm not sure how that's going to land. I like John and Chelsea a lot, but I'm not quite sure about that ad. But one thing I do want to point out real quick, if you could tell us like in, a minute or less, for ladies watching who don't even know what a primary is, because I didn't know. Before I was in politics, I had no idea what a primary meant.
Yeah, and John Rose has just launched this week his second TV commercial. Both the first one and the one that he's just put out, and the second one he's just put out talks about all the people that are moving into Tennessee, and we need to keep Tennessee, protecting our farmland, protecting our values, protecting who we are.
Yeah.
These are great ads to introduce him.
Yeah.
My only concern is these should have been done a month or 2 months earlier, because now we're into the battle.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to throw and take punches and distinguish yourself from your opponent. Again, for your ladies, attack ads are not necessarily all mean or stuff that people say, oh, I just don't like the attack ads. They work. And that's the reason you see so many. The kinder, gentler kumbaya ads don't move voters. So candidates and their consultants and activists, don't play the attack ads because they like them. They play them for the one single reason. They work. They've worked
yeah,
in past
unfortunately.
elections. They always have an impact. It's like gossip, sadly. You'll always believe the worst about somebody if you hear the gossip. If somebody says they're a great person, you'll kind of let that flow off your back like water off a duck's back. Gossip works, attack ads work. So you're going to see a lot of those. And I think what John has not done at this point is really lay out in strong terms, how does he distinguish himself as a corporate CEO, as a business owner, as a guy who's created businesses? Because he's made it kind of a subtle point that, look, I'm running to be the CEO of the state. So let's look at the resumes. Marsha's been in public office voting a lot in the state house, the state senate, in Congress, and in the U.S. Senate. Votes don't create businesses or run a company. So I think that kind of distinction has been missing. I assume we're going to see more of that. But if you're going to play this is a CEO position we're both seeking, let's look at the resumes, you're going to have to do it a lot more direct than I think he's done to date. Again, he's still unknown across the state, has to identify himself, and that's part of what he's doing now. It's just we're now into the final months, and it's going to come quickly. And you got to communicate in a pretty direct way, I think, to move votes. In terms of the primary, I mean, let's think of this as we've got these civic clubs in our community. You got the Kiwanis Club, you got the Rotary Club, you've got others. If I'm a member of Rotary, I get to vote who gets to be the president, the vice president, and the other offices in Rotary. I don't get to go across to Kiwanis and decide who are the officers and leaders of their club. Primaries are similar. Republicans pick who their nominees will be in campaigns. If you're a Democrat, you don't get to vote legally in the Republican primary. If you're a Republican, you don't vote in the Democrat primary. It's not a matter of being clubs. It's a matter of the political parties picking their standard bearers to go into the general election. So the primaries, and again, whether you're doing it at the ballot box or as some counties have started to adopt in caucuses, where people gather at a specific location, they discuss, they debate, they may hear from candidates, and then they pick in a meeting who their nominee for the general election will be. In a lot of states, Georgia and others, they have runoff elections where you have to get 50% of the vote in the primary and in the general election, 50% of the vote plus one in order to win. So one of the complaints that we have in Tennessee from many, and it includes me, is I think we should go to this runoff process so that people coalesce behind their best nominee rather than having several people run and then somebody literally with maybe 30% support gets the nomination or in the general election wins. So, a lot of people talk about, you've got moderate Republicans and they tend to win because conservatives divide up the vote. The solution to that isn't, I think, closed primaries. It's having a runoff. So if you have 3 conservatives run and one more liberal or moderate Republican runs and they win because the conservatives divide up the vote, the moderate gets 30% and becomes the nominee. That's one of the reasons we have so many so-called rhinos Republicans in name only, or moderates win, because as conservatives, we divide up our votes. And without a runoff, then they end up getting the nomination. So you want to look at who votes in the primaries, and should you have a runoff to dictate who actually wins. Again, some say let's close the primaries. You ought to have to be a, quote, bona fide Republican show and register you're a Republican to vote in the primary. That might be nice enough, but I personally think that runoffs would help ensure that more conservatives get elected than blocking the process off to only those who've registered. I want as many to join our party as possible, assuming they share the principles, the values, and the ideas that reflect a Republican Party.
Yeah. So the way that and that's a great way that you explained it too. So the way I always understood it was, this is where, ladies, this is where we're choosing our Republican horse, who's going to run in the political derby in November against the Democrat. So this is why we've got to get behind the person now. We can't just sit back and wait on who that nominee is going to be. Like, this is our choice, our chance to show up and actually influence that. Gosh, Steve, I had no idea. For so many years, I never voted in a primary. And when I came to run, that when he's talking about bona fide ladies, he's saying that in order to run in Tennessee as a Republican, you have to have voted out of 3 out of the last 4 primary elections, not just showing up for the general in November, but voting in these primary elections too before November. So yeah, I think just a lot of people don't know that. So thank you for explaining that. So yeah, we're kind of in that crunch time now, like May to August. So August will be our primary election. And then between August and November, they'll start then the race for the general election. Marcia, I know she's got a lot of PAC money coming in. She's got a lot of, I mean, I think she's already way past John Rose in her fundraising and all of that. So, we're going to talk about that next show, I think, about how that all works. But any chance you think for John, or is it too early to say?
I think there's still time, but it's going to have to require, both some great work by him and some mistakes, frankly, by Blackburn. Right now, she's kind of trying to sit on her lead, so to speak. She has a big lead in the polls. She is going to play what a lot of front runners do in politics and, frankly, in sports. My attitude in sports is that when you start playing to not lose, you find that you lose more often than not. So I think Marcia has to be very careful to not get in that category of playing to not lose rather than playing to win. That doesn't mean she needs to be running severe attack ads on John Rose. But if that margin of name identification starts to narrow, then it could become a race. I mean, the advantage she has now is that she has run statewide several times. She has very high name identification. When you do polling, you find out people know Marcia Blackburn's name. They may not be able to tell you a lot about her, but they've heard of her name before. And with John Rose, he has very low name identification because, first of all, as a member of Congress, he wasn't running statewide, was not known from East Tennessee to Memphis. And as a member of Congress, he wasn't one of those rush to the cameras, do interviews all the time, do things to attract attention. He was a worker bee rather than a show horse. So he does not have a lot of name identification, and he's having to build that. And frankly, again, from political strategy, you want to introduce yourself and let the voters know a little bit about you, which is what he's doing with these first couple of TV ads, his travel around the state. Let them know who he is, what he believes, and what his credentials are. Because when you go on the attack, if people don't know anything about you, it's not going to help you as much as if they know you, like you, feel like you have the credentials to throw some punches. So again, I think the problem is that the time is narrow. It's possible, but he's going to have to put a lot of money into the process with media to build that name identification and then, go on the attack and show how he would be a different governor than Marcia Blackburn will be. She's got a long career in politics. He has a long career in business and a relatively short career in politics. And I think he has to make a real good case of why that distinction matters if you're going to be electing a governor. Now, she has raised a lot of money, but a lot of her money can't be spent. Again, we're going to talk more in the next show we do about the difference in hard money and soft money. A lot of the money she has at her disposal is for both the general and the primary election. She can't spend that general election money in the primary. So she may have a lot in the bank, but she's limited in what she can spend. And the advantage that John has is the advantage that all of us in politics would love to have when your biggest fundraising challenge is remembering your 4-digit PIN number at the anytime teller machine. He can put millions and millions more of his own money into the race, whereas Marcia doesn't have that capacity. So he can self-fund even more than he has. It just depends on how much he's willing to spend.
And I think he's already self-funded $5 million. Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you have Brent Taylor, who's running for Congress in that new 9th district. Day one, I mean, literally the first hours, he put $1 million of his own money into that congressional race, which gives him a big head start over other candidates because you're in the process now. Again, when we get into this late season and people think, well, it's still 2 months. In politics, that is a short period of time.
Yeah.
Because if you're depending on raising money rather than self-funding, putting more of your own money in, it becomes a crunch time of can you raise it and spend it fast enough.
Yeah.
By the time somebody says, oh, yeah, I'm going to write you a $2,000 check. Well, they mail it. It takes a little while. It gets in. You're having to spend it almost as fast as it comes in. So as we get that timeline squeezed down, you almost can't raise it fast enough to be able to utilize it. So again, the clock is ticking for all of these candidates, whether it's state house, state senate, congressional candidates, or even in the governor's race. If you don't already have a pretty good amount of what's called cash on hand, it's already in the bank. If you don't already have that, raising it becomes more difficult, particularly when so many others are clamoring for the people with money to make their donations. So there's a limited pool of those who can and will donate political dollars in significant enough amounts to matter. And again, as we get closer to the primary election day, those people are going to get drained and the time is going to run out.
You know, for all the money that's spent, Steve, so little turnout for a primary. You know, I mean, that's just the part that still astounds me. You know, that they put in millions and millions and millions of dollars and still get a trickle at the polling locations on primary day.
The Kentucky congressional race involving Thomas Massey, who's running for re-election, has been in Congress for quite a while. Donald Trump has come out against him, and Pete Hegseth was in Kentucky earlier this week to campaign against him. He has been a thorn in President Trump's side, has been one of those who voted to impeach President Trump as a Republican. $35 million has been spent in that congressional race that will be determined Tuesday night in Kentucky. So again, the amount of money in that race, you know, is mind-boggling. Generally, you know, we're going to see in a statewide race in Tennessee when Bill Lee got elected over Diane Black and over Randy Boyd, they spent over $20 million. Bill Lee spent over $12 million. So compare that to a congressional race that has about maybe 600, 700,000 people in the entire district. $35 million just for the primary.
Wow. And you know, that's a good point. Something you said on an earlier show that I think we should insert here that I think is so important. You know, when we look at that Diane Black, you know, a lot of those who outspent Governor Lee, and then he ended up kind of the underdog getting the governorship. You know, you made a comment one time about you've got to have, yes, maybe he was outspent, but you've got to have enough to come to the table. You've got to be able to ante up.
Well, and that's exactly what happened there. You had Diane Black, Randy Boyd just beating the living daylights out of each other in media, both spending over $20 million. And Bill Lee, people say, well, he won with grassroots. Well, grassroots are helpful. You need people to knock on the doors and get out there and be volunteers. But he spent $12 million. And again, while the other two were just beating the living daylights out of each other, he kind of slipped in because neither of them launched attacks on him. So at the end of the day, he got about, 35% of the vote. So keep in mind, 65% of the Republican primary voters didn't vote for him, but he became the nominee, and in a deep red state went on to beat Carl Dean, the former mayor Democrat of Nashville, by about 10 or 12 points. So in a red state, in most of these congressional districts, state house districts, they're going to go Republican in the fall. So winning the primary is the end all be all. And for him to be able to slide through unscathed, nobody launching attack ads on him during the process, his 12 million was enough. He, again, didn't need to outspend the others because they were spending all their time beating up on each other, attacking each other. He came through unscathed and had enough to win with 35% of the vote, or about that.
Yeah, he was that dark horse that they never saw coming. They just had counted him out. But he still had 12 million. He still had enough to actually be a serious contender, and that was the point. So before I let you go today, anything else going on in the country? I know that we want to hit on. I know Trump was in China. We still got the standoff with Iran. Like, where are we at with all of that stuff today?
Yeah, again, the world is complicated. It always is. The difference you have, I think, in President Trump is that he is taking on issues that other presidents have kicked the can down the road, not dealing with Iran. For 47 years, Iran has been threatening, screaming death to America. They've been trying to develop nuclear weapons, and President Obama gave them like $1.7 billion and a get-out-of-jail-free card that allowed them to continue to develop and hide their nuclear weapons development process. President Trump said, no, we're not going to let this happen. Same thing with Maduro in Venezuela. He was funding and helping to push fentanyl and drugs into the U.S., was continuing to create havoc and chaos in South America on our borders, basically. President Trump handled it. Again, he went and visited with President Xi in China. We've had difficult both economic and military relations with China. It was an amazing trip. They've opened up more sales of our soybeans, which will help Tennessee farmers, among others. But also they have continued to maintain the kind of, we're not going to be direct. It's not going to be black and white relationship between China and Taiwan. Taiwan wants to be independent. China wants them not to be. And we play that kind of diplomatic vagueness of where we are between that conflict. And President Trump goes to China and did not complicate that any further than it already is. So again, you're seeing major changes in the world thanks to President Trump. I mean, right now, you have the United Arab Emirates, you have Bahrain, you have Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Lebanon, all engaged and cooperating against Iran, and in many cases actually having direct communications with Israel. That has not happened.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole dynamic of the Middle East is changing dramatically, and it would not have happened if President Trump had not been bringing his force of power and personality and commitment to the fray. And at the end of the day, I think Iran will be denied nuclear weapons. And that is a big win, not just for the U.S., not just for Israel, but for all those other countries in the Middle East that have been threatened and bullied and had the threat of military action from Iran against them held over their head. That has made that whole region a lot more unstable. If President Trump can be successful there, that may be one of the greatest accomplishments of his second term in office, even though Americans are generally very isolationist. We don't care what's happening around the rest of the world. We care properly about gas prices and food prices and crime in our cities and education. But ultimately, if we're not safe internationally, it's hard to put any of those things successfully into place.
Yeah, I agree. I will say this, just as we close out here, I was happy to see Trump get involved in the attack on Christians in Nigeria. That was a really wonderful thing to see.
You take out the number 2 terrorist in the world remaining. We've taken out several in the past, and it barely comes up as a blip on the news media because there's so much other stuff happening. But that was huge. It continues to be huge, and the murder, the genocide of Christians in Nigeria has been ignored by the national media and unfortunately by religious leaders, Christian leaders around the world. And again, President Trump steps in and does things that others ignore. And again, I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for that.
I agree. Thank you so much. Ladies, make sure you go to tristardaily.com and get your news there. We can trust Steve Gill. Thank you so much, my friend. We will see you back next week.
Thank you.
All right, we're in the Tea Time Cafe now. I hope you have poured yourself a cup of hot tea. Just slow down for a minute and do that for yourself, would you? There's something very peaceful. It just brings a peace to the soul when we take a minute to pour ourselves a nice cup of hot tea and enjoy it. Take a few minutes to sip it slowly and enjoy it. Let the noise of the world settle down a bit. We're going to dive in pretty deep here today, so let's get in that right mindset for that. Cheers. All right. Let me start off with scripture because that's where we always want to start. It's the best place to start. And then I'll dive into these things that I really want to share with you that God has put on my heart and some changes, some pretty significant changes that you're going to see with me going forward as those things have been settling in. All right. I am in Proverbs. I'm in chapter 29. And I'm going to start here in verse 2. When the righteous are in authority and become great, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man rules, the people groan and sigh. I'm going to skip down to verse number 8. Scoffers set a city afire by stirring up trouble, but wise men turn away anger and restore order with their good judgment. Hold on to that for just a minute. And then I'm going to skip over here to verse 16. When the wicked are in authority, transgression increases, but the righteous will see the downfall of the wicked. Correct your son, and he will give you comfort. Yes, he will delight your soul where there is no vision, no revelation of God in his word. The people are unrestrained, but happy and blessed is he who keeps the law of God. Okay, it's verses like this, and there are many of them in the Bible, that basically prove that we as Christians, we have a role to play in society. We can't just check out and say, you know what? It's just not my problem. I don't want anything to do with that cesspool. Me and my family are just going to do our thing, and we're not going to worry about Washington. We're not going to worry about the news. We're not going to worry about anything that's going on outside of our little bubble. And you can do that. But let me tell you, if you don't want to engage in society and in culture and in politics, they certainly will engage with you. And when it gets to the point where it is now, where it's so bad that it's on your doorstep, that it's in conversation around your dinner table, that you can't seem to find any peace or rest in your soul because the world has gone nuts, that's because Christians like us, and I'm pointing at me just like I'm pointing at you. Okay, we're in this together. We have been asleep on the job. And this is what's led to my decision that I announced last week, that politics is something that I am stepping away from. Now, I know I just read you these scriptures and I just said something that might seem contradictory, but bear with me and let me explain. It's very different to be engaged in the political process versus being involved in politics. Okay, now, let me see if I can unpack this in a way that doesn't seem confusing. For the last 7 years after God asked me to run for office, and let me tell you, that was a God call. I know it was, because I did not want to do it. And for a full year, I fought him internally on it. I knew he was drawing me toward it. I knew he was asking me to do it. And I was not very compliant early on because I didn't want any part of it. I feel the way a lot of you do. Who wants to go into that cesspool? Who wants to go into that den of demons, that viper den? I didn't. I knew it was going to be nasty, and I knew I wasn't qualified for it. And I couldn't understand why God was calling me to it. Yet he was. And so I got in it in 2020 to run for State House of Representatives after a couple of smaller positions that he had given me before that. And I got to tell you, that my race hit just as COVID was hitting, as the BLM riots were hitting. I mean, our world was like a dumpster fire during that election. And I could not for the life of me understand any of it until now. And when I look back on it and all the things that he's taught me, all the things that I've learned, and certainly how much my faith has grown in that process, I understand now why he's helping me make the distinction between being in politics and being politically engaged. And now I feel this massive sense of responsibility and urgency to come and share these things with you, because I know a lot of us also have a hard time discerning this. Okay. So I made that decision last week after a full year of praying on this and contemplating it. I've been talking with mentors. I've been taking my mentors to lunch and to breakfast and talking with them about it. I've been praying on it constantly. I've been saying, Lord, what are you saying? Because you pulled me into it so heavily, and now you're pulling me out of it. And I just wanted to make sure that it was him pulling me out of it and not me just walking away. And until I had that clarity, I just have been very careful and in this decision. Okay. So here's the difference that I see. There are some people that God anoints. He calls them into a political office, and he anoints them to be able to go in and do that. And I think that's why it's important for some Christians to be elected and to be in there pushing that darkness back. But there are some of us where it's a stepping stone, just something else that he wants to do. And that's what I think happened with me. I don't think his intent was ever for me to serve as an elected official. I think there were things I needed to understand and learn at a deeper level so that now I can come back and reach back for you and say, okay, I've been in the belly of the beast. I understand how all the puppet strings work now. And now I can come back to you and I can say, here's how we now as the church show up better in society and start to push this evil back. Because that's our real enemy. It's not the Democrats. It's the spirit of Antichrist that's driving these policies that are directly in direct defiance of God's law and God's word. I think that we as Christians, it's become glaringly obvious to me that we don't know enough about our Bible, enough how to engage in conversations about Jesus. And we certainly don't know enough about civics and about politics to even engage in those conversations. So it's been like this vacuum, right? It's been like this void that the enemy has been very, very happy to fill. So he comes in and he manipulates people's emotions and he twists the law and he twists God's word just enough so that it sounds reasonable to those of us who don't know any different. We don't know where the shoreline is. So we don't understand how far we've drifted from it as Americans. And now all we do is we just look at the news, we look at everything, and we think everything just appears to be upside down and crazy, like we're living in the Twilight Zone. And we don't know how we got here. And now we're waking up from it. We're waking up from that slumber and we're going, oh my gosh, like the house is on fire. And so it's easy to just sort of get in our bubbles, like I said, and just not want to look, like pull the covers up over our head and not want to look. And if Jesus is coming back, if we are in the last days, and hopefully he comes soon and we can, just ride this out till he gets here. That's been the mentality. We keep ourselves distracted. We watch movies. We go do fun things out in this society. We whatever it is to kind of keep our mind off of the dumpster fire. I want us to have fun. I want us to enjoy our lives. And we do need to operate from a place of joy and from authority. Like we are operating from victory, not defeat. But that does not give us a pass to not engage in conversations and try to be about his business while we're waiting on him to come back. Okay. So that's the difference. So being in politics, in other words, showing up to the galas, trying to go for the last several years, I've been training Republican women's groups. I've been that's been my audience, the Republican groups, the Republican rooms, right? And I've been so active in that. That's what I'm coming out of. I'm still going to encourage everybody to vote Republican because the values of the Republican Party are the most closely aligned with the Bible. And I've got a whole course that I can lead you through to teach you that on my website. There's a whole online course that I walk you through all of that. Prove that we were founded on Christian values. Prove that our governmental structure and the majority of our founding fathers were deeply rooted in their Christian faith. Proof that there was no way we could have won our independence without the providence of God. Like I prove all that in my course. I encourage you to go and take it. It's on my website, DianeCanada.com. But again, I think where the biggest barrier is that we don't feel like we know enough. And for a lot of us, that's true. We don't know enough. And so as a result, we don't feel confident to have conversations around faith and around our cultural issues. And that's what we've got to change. And that's what I feel compelled to come in and help us change. I want to come in and just pour out on you everything that I've learned from being in this political beast, right? And show you like what matters on the outside, what matters to the church, and what are the things that don't matter. Where is the real, where's the truth, and where are we being deceived? And I got to tell you, both parties, just because I'm a Republican does not mean that I don't see the corruption and the warts and the maggots under the political rocks. They're in both parties. Okay. Absolutely. 100%. There are areas of the Republican Party that are just as nasty as the Democrat Party. Anytime you've got fame, money, and prestige, you get those three pillars. Anytime you've got those, then you've got a recipe for massive corruption and massive, like disgustful human behavior. So that's in both parties. And I see that. Okay. But there are a lot of good people in office, in the Republican Party even, and probably a few in the Democrat Party that actually do have a moral compass, that actually are trying, that actually are anointed by God to be in there. So we need to not confuse the policies or the values with the people. Okay. So Republican values are the most closely aligned. And you see a lot of Democrats coming over to the Republican Party as a result of that. The deception is lifting from them. You've got a lot of Christians who've just been seeing the light suddenly, and they're coming over to the Republican Party. But again, it's not about party anymore for me. It's not about that. I don't think it ever really was, but I think I was just still immersed in it and still speaking to those audiences and all. And God needed to pull me out and say, okay, you've learned everything I wanted you to learn in there. You've seen, you've seen the puppet strings. You understand how it all works now. Now come out and help people understand their power in me, okay, in him. Like our authority and our power is all in him. There's no cavalry out of Washington that can save what ails America. There's just none. So as the church, we've got to take our spot on the wall now. This is our watch. These are our children and grandchildren. And in these last days, it's more important than ever because Jesus warned us so heavily in the Bible that in the last days, the biggest issue we would have, apart from the lawlessness and all these other issues in the wars and rumors of war, apart from all that, the first thing he said was, do not be deceived. That deception would be our biggest enemy in these last days. It's real easy for us to stay ignorant, but we cannot afford it anymore, ladies. I mean, we don't know how much longer we have here until Jesus comes back, but we do not. I mean, God told us to occupy until he comes back. So we don't have a pass to just pull the covers up over our head and stay in our little bubble and just like I'm not paying attention to what's happening in the world around me. No. Like that's not okay. We can't do that. So this is why I have stepped out of politics, and my whole focus now is more ministry. It's more on how do we grow up in our faith and how do we grow up around understanding the cultural context, the cultural issues that are directly in violation of our faith, and then how to course correct that and win people to our values, to God's values. That's our job now. That's what we have to do. So I'm dedicating all my time and energy to that going forward. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be developing in Lady Up America to give us lots of different ways to accomplish this. I definitely wish that everyone watching right now would go get my brand new book, Lady Up in These Last Days. Like that's going to be a very quick read. You can read it in an afternoon, but it's packed. Like I pulled out my songwriter skills in that, where I said a lot in a small space. So that will bring you up to speed very, very quickly on where we are in these last days. Understand the urgency of the hour that we're in, but without falling into fear. Okay. So that's what that book was designed to do. Bring us up to speed, but then show us what we can do in our day-to-day lives to reach out to those neighbors and start to win hearts and minds to him in these last days. So that's part of it. But then also we need to understand the culture. We need to understand America's values, America's laws, so that we can understand why all of these policies that are being pushed cannot sustain, like America cannot sustain them. So that online course I told you about on my website, you can go to that. And it's, again, I handhold you through all of that, show you the proof, help you understand the context of our values and how it relates to the lawlessness that we're seeing now, so that we can help our neighbors wake up. Like that's the whole point, right? You don't want to go learn this just to learn it. Like there's a point in it. Like now you understand, oh, okay, I understand now. So this is why abortion is not reproductive health care. Okay, I get that now. Oh, okay. Well, this is why it's not okay for us to not go in and defend Israel. Okay, I understand that now. Oh, okay. Now I understand why borders are important. Borders are actually biblical. I get it now. It's like you'll have so many aha moments when you go through that. You'll be like, oh my gosh. And it's quick. Like I bring you up to speed quickly. We're all busy. We don't have time to go down long rabbit trails or take long courses. Like these are very, very quick. It's high level, cliff notes. So you can come up to speed very, very quickly. I'm also going to be giving more workshops around tea parties. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to invite you into my member community going forward. In fact, I'll go ahead and just announce that now. In the coming days, I want you to go on the website and become a member of the Lady Up America community. It's going to give you access to the membership directory so you can reach out and find support from women all around the country. Get in on the ground floor of this and let's start locking arms and locking hands with other ladies all around the country that feel the same way we do and want to start pushing this evil back. So that's going to be a membership that you can become a part of. I'll be doing live streams. I'm just going to do everything I possibly can to pour into you what God has poured into me and to show us why there's no cavalry coming out of Washington. This is our watch. This is our turn as the church to step up. And there's a lot you can do that is simple, that's easy, and dare I say even fun. It's even fun. You know, as suburban women, we have so much reach and so much influence potential. You see that neighbor over and over and over and over again. So you have so many opportunities to water that seed that you initially plant, that I teach you how to plant in my book and in my courses and all this. It's a graceful approach to winning hearts and minds to Jesus. It's not something that is going to create a confrontation for you or put you in a bad position or back you into some kind of a corner. It's the polar opposite of that. You know, influence can be graceful. It doesn't have to be ugly. In fact, it shouldn't be ugly. It shouldn't be something that we dread. It should be something that pours out of us. Our cup runneth over, right? So then we have enough to pour out on other people. So when we finally start to understand that fruit of the Spirit, that peace that we can tap into, we already have it. We just don't access it. That peace and that joy meaning that no matter what's going on, storm can be raging all around us, but it's not in us anymore. We have self-control. We're walking out kindness and humility, gentleness, all these things. This is, God said, against all of the fruit of the Spirit, there is no law. No law. And this is what we have to learn how to walk out. And that's what I teach you. And that's my heart to teach that. You know, spiritual stability is so super important to me. And it's really important to God too. Spiritual stability is important to me because I never knew it growing up. I never knew anybody with it. And it wreaked havoc on my life. And I've seen how I've wreaked havoc on other people's lives when I didn't have it. Now that I understand the difference and you can have it too. Oh my gosh, it's a powerful place to operate from. Like God meets you there, and supernatural strength and influence start happening when you are walking out that fruit of the Spirit and you are really applying these things I'm talking about today. There is massive impact you can make. And it's there for the taking. Right now, you've got to want to. Refuse to live one more day with the covers pulled up over your head. Refuse to live one more day with your finger in your ear going, la, 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 I'm not paying attention. I don't want to know about any of that. It's nasty. It's icky. It's ugly. I don't want to be part. No, I'm asking you right now to take the finger away from your ears, to take the covers away from your head, to wake up with me gently. Let me help wake you up, and let's learn about the biblical application to the cultural issues. Let's refuse to just check out on this anymore. And once we learn that, now let's go apply it and let's win those neighbors in these last days. Guys, eternity's on the line. Eternity. And so many people are so deceived. They are so blind and so deceived. And you have been placed in your community on purpose. God put you there on purpose to reach the people that are lost around you, to at least try. We're not going to win everybody. We're not, but we can win some. And what if that person's eternal address changes because you were willing to say, yep, God, send me. Yep, God, I'll go talk to her. What if? It's a big worth it on the other side of that. So don't check out. Let's lady up. Let's lady up in our own faith, right? Let's understand the Bible better. Let's understand that relationship with Jesus better. Let's lady up in our own faith, and then let's lady up and go win the lost that are right around, that live next door. Let's go win them, y'all. This is our watch. No cavalry coming out of Washington, D.C. This is our watch. Let's do it right. Let's get to heaven and God look at us and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I hope that was so helpful for you today. I hope it maybe changes the way you're looking at things a little bit. Maybe offers in some things to think about. That's the best I can hope for as you walk away today. Thanks again for tuning in. We've got to do our part. We've got a role to play in these last days. And I want us to be Academy Award winners for our role that we're playing. All right, ladies, I'll see you back next week. Lady up.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just lady up, lady up.